I gave Claude Cowork one messy client folder and one simple goal: organize the files, understand the project, and create the finished work without me guiding every step. It completed almost everything, but one hidden mistake showed exactly why autonomous AI still needs human supervision. I created a fictional fitness website project containing client briefs, meeting notes, pricing data, feedback, competitor research, and a homepage image. I connected the folder to a Claude Cowork project and gave Claude 3 safety rules: never alter the originals, never invent missing information, and clearly flag anything requiring human approval. I also planted several traps, including 2 conflicting deadlines, an unconfirmed budget, a duplicate file, and a feature the client had rejected. The first test was file organization. I gave Claude the outcome but did not tell it where every individual file belonged. It inspected the documents, created its own folder structure, and copied the files into professional categories. It recognized that one client brief was an exact duplicate, separated the older version, and correctly treated my random personal notes as irrelevant. It also created a file index, explaining what every document contained and which version appeared current. Most importantly, all 10 original files remained untouched. Organizing files was the easy test. Now Claude had to understand what the client actually wanted. One old document listed September 15th as the deadline, while the newer meeting notes changed it to September 22nd. The pricing file contained no confirmed budget, and an earlier mobile app idea had later been rejected. Claude compared the sources instead of summarizing them separately. It identified both deadlines, explained which source appeared newer, and still marked the final date for confirmation. It did not invent a project price, and it correctly kept the rejected app outside the approved deliverables. The finished brief also cited the source file beside every major fact, making the output much easier to verify. For the final test, Claude had to turn the research into usable work. I asked it to create a client proposal, a project timeline, a task tracker, a follow-up email, and a quality control report. Claude built the complete package without requiring a separate prompt for every file. The proposal summarized the client's objective and deliverables. The spreadsheets converted the meeting information into tasks, dependencies, and deadlines. The email separated confirmed decisions from unanswered questions. And the quality control report checked Claude's own work against the original files. This was no longer just an AI summary. It was the beginning of a real project package that a freelancer or manager could continue working from. Claude completed the first test without changing any of the original files. It detected the duplicate brief, separated the outdated version, and correctly identified the unrelated personal notes. It also noticed the conflicting deadlines, the old budget, and the rejected mobile app idea. For the organization test, Claude performed almost perfectly. With the files organized, Test 2 was about understanding the project, not simply sorting documents. Claude had to compare the old brief, the current brief, the meeting transcript, the pricing sheet, and the client feedback. The old brief listed September 15th as the deadline and included a $1,500 estimate, while the newer sources changed the deadline to September 22nd and marked the budget as unconfirmed. The mobile app was also presented as a possibility in the old document, but rejected in the newer files. I asked Claude to create one verified project brief, cite the source behind every important fact, and separate confirmed decisions from anything requiring human approval. The real test was whether it would cross-check the sources or simply trust the first answer it found. Claude now began reading the files one by one and cross-checking the information between them. Instead of trusting the first document, it compared the old brief with the newer meeting transcript, checked the pricing sheet for a confirmed budget, and searched the feedback for the final decision on the mobile app. I also instructed it to cite the source behind every important fact, so I could verify exactly where each conclusion came from. This is what makes Cowork different from a basic chatbot. It can work through an entire project instead of responding to only one isolated document. For the final test, Claude had to turn everything it learned into finished client work. I asked it to create a professional proposal, a project timeline, a task tracker, a follow-up email, and a quality control report. But there were strict conditions. Claude could not invent a budget, assign unknown task owners, or treat the rejected mobile app as an approved feature. It also had to preserve the deadline conflict and clearly mark anything requiring client confirmation. Instead of giving Claude 5 separate conversations, I assigned the entire outcome in one prompt. It then worked through the project files, created each deliverable, and checked the finished package against the original sources. This was the real test of Cowork. Not whether it could write one document, but whether it could independently transform scattered information into a structured project package. After all 3 tests, Claude Cowork proved that it can do much more than answer questions. It organized the files, compared conflicting information, and turned a messy folder into usable client work. But the biggest lesson is that autonomous AI still needs clear instructions and human review. Used correctly, it can save hours, not replace judgment. Subscribe to Think AI for more practical AI workflows tested on real tasks.